Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Let's Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join our Facebook group, The Lesbian Review Book Club. Today I'm joined by author Sheryn Munir, whose first book, Falling into Place, is out everywhere from Ilva Publishing. Welcome, Sheryn.
Hi, Tara. Nice to be here.
So you are here today to talk about your journey reading lesbian fiction. Where did that begin for you?
Well, actually, it's quite a long story, and I'm really surprised because that I'm sitting here today talking to you as a Lesfic author, because 15 years ago I could never have imagined it. And it's not for the reasons that you might think, as you know that I'm from India, and that it's a very conservative place. Homosexuality is still not accepted here, either by law or by society. But that's not what I mean. That's not the reason. Actually, the reason why I'm surprised is because for me, lesbian fiction or stories about lesbians had always been something that happened in elite literature rather than in popular fiction. Around 2003 or 4 is when I read my first book with lesbian characters, and I was in my late 20s then, and it was called Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit.
What a wonderful book.
But okay, I hope then that you're not going to lynch me because I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Well, that's okay. Not every book is for every person.
Well, so it was very highbrow according to me. It took me a long time to finish it as well. And there were some, around that time, there were some Indian authors too who were writing stories about lesbians. Like there was Baby G by Abha Daveshwar, which also won a Lambda around that time. And then there was Manju Kapoor's A Married Woman. All of these books are very high literature, all literary fiction. So, and I'm not very fond of that genre. So I completely dismissed lesbian fiction as only for a certain intellectual elite kind of crowd and not for somebody with my kind of tastes.
So what kind of books did you enjoy reading at that point?
Oh, well, at that point, actually, my tastes were very eclectic. I wasn't a very huge reader. But in terms of romance, I mean, romance was still something that, it still is something that you are supposed to be embarrassed about reading. Mm-hmm. But I really used to enjoy reading romance. So I was actually reading Mills and Boon and liking those, even though they were, very straight, very heterosexual stories. I was still enjoying them because of the romance in them.
I get it. I read an embarrassing number of, they were called Harlequins over here, but they were basically the same thing. I read so many of those in high school, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and in India there were very few limited kind of authors, very popular authors who would kind of make it into the Indian market. So we didn't have access to a lot of books, but Mills and Boon you would always find. Like I don't think the Western market stopped at all or worried at all to send books into the Indian market, Mills and Boon into the Indian market at all, because there were voracious readers of that genre, even in India. So that was not a problem. And I mean, so that's what I was reading around that time.
So you weren't satisfied with the literary fiction, which, like I said, is totally fair, because again, not every book is going to be for every person. What was the first book that you found that you loved, and how did you find it?
How did I find it? Actually, it wasn't it. What I found first was actually not a book, but it was television that introduced me to lesbian pop culture. So around 3 or 4 years later, after I decided that lesbian fiction is not for me, a friend of mine gave me the DVD of the L Word, the first season. And I started watching that. And, well, it was kind of completely surreal, because where is this world where there are so many lesbians and so many different kinds of lesbians, and I was like, I mean, I couldn't believe that even in the US, a place that I've never been to, could there be a place where there were so many lesbians. I mean, I kept wondering that, but I really enjoyed the series. I enjoyed the characters, their interaction, the storyline. I could never figure out Jenny Schechter, but that's a different matter altogether. Anyway.
She's the worst.
Yeah. I mean, what was that? How? Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and the internet had just, internet connections had just started. Broadband had come into the country, and so one was finding stuff online. So the rest of the seasons, actually, I wanted to watch, definitely. So I started looking I watched the other seasons of the L Word. And then I started finding other stuff like South of Nowhere. And then I discovered these YouTube videos where people were editing lesbian storylines from serials and soaps and everything and uploading them on YouTube. And so I discovered Guiding Lights, Olivia and Natalia. And that story completely absorbed me. I was completely into it and it was such a well-told story. I mean, the production quality of that soap was not that great. But the way that they turned from rivals into friends and then into lovers, the journey happened so slowly, so subtly, and so wonderfully that I was completely taken in by it. And after that, I was very obsessed with it. In fact, I think I watched those videos at least 3 times. I even downloaded them and kept them with me so that I could keep going back to certain portions and rewatch them and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm still completely into these YouTube videos. Now there are even more lesbian stories and more people uploading them, and they're from different regions. They're from different countries. They're from Spain and Germany and Scandinavia and other European countries and of course the US and Asian countries. So they're from China and Israel and Iran and Thailand, the Philippines, and a couple of them from India as well. There's this one very interesting web series that has come from India, which is called The Other Love Story, which is just such a very sensitive portrayal of how lesbian relationship would come about in India. And so I really enjoyed all of that a lot. And through that, I discovered fan fiction.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's where the reading part begins, actually. So I was looking for fan fiction for Otalia in the beginning. And then I came across, and I used to find these stories, and at that time I used to have this bulky 15-inch HP laptop, and I would carry it to my bed, and I would turn it sideways like a book and would be reading late into the night. Read a lot of fan fiction, visited a lot of these websites like xenafiction.net and Academy of Bards and sapphic.voices.com. But apart from the fan fiction, more than the fan fiction, what I discovered was what I then at that time thought was original fiction, which later turned out that it was uber fiction but it was so different from the Xena fan fiction and the Xena world that for me it was like original content, and that's what I really seriously got into reading.
So, for people who may not be familiar with it, can you explain what uber fiction is?
Oh, actually, I also discovered it very recently.
So, uber fiction takes characters from a particular fandom, whether it's a TV series or a movie or video game or whatever, and just puts those characters in a totally different setting. So, were there any in particular that you really loved?
Authors?
Yeah, authors or stories, like the ones that that just kept bringing you back?
Yeah. Well, Radcliffe. I really loved Radcliffe. The Honor series, that's where I read it first. Not the whole thing, just the first two books, can I call them that?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And Love's, was it called Love's Melody Lost?
Oh yeah, which you can get that through Bold Strokes now.
Yeah, now all of those have been turned into published books. So yeah, and that story, I have only read it once, and that story still stayed with me. It was such a powerful story, and that singer was such a powerful character, and it was such an emotional story. It really drew me in, and I still remember it after it's been 10, 12 years, and I still remember it.
I read it again. I didn't read it. I guess I listened to the audiobook sometime within the last year, and it's still good. Like, it just has so much passion to it, and it's all these like big angsty feelings all over the place, so it's a lot of fun.
It really worked well for me.
So were there any particular fandoms that you especially loved?
Yeah, there was the Otalia fandom, for sure. Actually, once I kind of discovered the Uber original content, I kind of gave up on the fandom.
Oh, okay.
I got more and more interested in, because they seemed like more original stories. And, we don't, in India, one doesn't have access to a lot of these TV series. So it was difficult, and a lot of the fandom I wasn't familiar with. And now, of course, a lot of the stories are available on YouTube. At that time, it was still a very new thing, and not everyone was doing it, and all the stories were being uploaded. So I had only access to a few of the stories and few of the characters. So I couldn't relate to too many of them, because I didn't know what the canon said. So yeah, I got into the Uber stuff more. So, and I read authors like Jerry Hill and Anne McMahon and Melissa Good, Blaine Cooper, Susan Meager, K.G. McGregor, Ali Valley, and so they're all published authors now. But that was my first introduction to all of these people.
Which kind of perfectly shows just how much fan fiction shaped the current lesbian fiction and lesbian romance genres. Like, it shaped our current landscape.
Right, and it's such an amazing thing, because all of this was happening outside India in a different environment altogether, where lesbian stories were being told on television, but people weren't completely happy with it and satisfied with it, so they just took the characters and did their own thing with it and told the stories that they wanted to tell. And I think it was a very revolutionary thing from, as an outsider, when I look at it and think about it. It was quite marvelous, actually, what happened.
So how easy is it for you to get published books now? Is it easier?
Yeah, now it's definitely much easier to get published books. So there's Amazon, there's Kobo, there's Smashwords, there's there are various websites that have, and you can, of course, also buy directly from the publishers, Yilva Publishing and Bolstroke Books and everyone. And yes, and there's NetGalley as well, where, you can get a book. If you do a review for them, they'll let you read the book for free. So there's that option as well. So yeah, so I've done all of that. I've bought books, I've reviewed for NetGalley and the publishers directly. The problem, though, is that because all of this literature is, I think it's America or the US is where the market is. And so all of these books are priced very high for the Indian market, and it's not very accessible in that way. So so that's a bit of a struggle. I have to sometimes think about whether I can buy a particular book because of the high price. I can buy three Indian books for that price. So it's that high.
Wow. So, are there any authors or books that you're particularly excited about now?
And I'm a big fan of fluff. Not, not romances which have, though I enjoy those two romances which have mystery and like part thriller or sci-fi or fantasy. Those I rarely read. So for me, what I really enjoy reading are pure romances. And for me, the author who really does that well at the moment, and she has the formula down pat, is Melissa Braden.
Yes.
Absolutely enjoy reading.
Yes.
I've never followed an author as much or as diligently as I followed her. I've read each one of her books.
I follow a lot of authors really diligently, but yeah, I've read every book and adore her. So if you had to pick, what is your favorite Melissa Braden book?
How Sweet It Is. That's my most favorite book.
Mm.
It's just a sweet story. It's just
uh-huh.
It's emotional. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's the connection between the two characters. There's so much wonderful chemistry, and Melissa has these kind of favorite words like pop, crackle, snap, and you can actually feel that between the characters. Yeah, it was just so well written. And I feel like even though she sticks to a formula, that sometimes her reasons or her relationships might seem like they're simple, and people are interacting with each other very simply and very directly, but there are always some complicated psychological stuff.
The thing that I find with her books, I get what you mean, because romance does have a particular formula where at the bare minimum, it's, you follow the development of a relationship, and at the end there will be a happily ever after. And kind of where the beats happen can shift depending on like who the publisher is or who the author is and what their rhythm is. But I do like that Melissa delivers a fresh story each time. And I think that was why I loved Strawberry Summer so much, because that one felt like such a departure from all of her other books. I don't know if you felt that way too.
Yes, absolutely. I did. I actually thought that book took her to another level, to the next level, actually.
So is there anything else that you would want to share about your journey as a reader of lesbian fiction?
My journey has brought me to a point, like I said, that when I dismissed lesbian literature as an elite endeavor, and now, it's completely changed for me. And it's because my exposure to lesbian literature now has I have not only become a voracious reader, because, there are days when I'm just reading and not doing anything else, and that's quite annoying for the people around me. And it has kind of, and it's taken me to the other side where I want to read and engage with more stories that are located in my context, like located in India. It's more about the people I know or interact with, and I guess that's the amazing part about this. And like I said in the beginning, that I didn't imagine that I would ever get here.
Mm-hmm. And now you're writing those stories for people in your country and in your context so that they can see themselves too.
Yes, no, I'm not actually, and that's the disappointing part, and that's the difficult part about this, is that there is no market in India yet, and nobody publishing. There is still a market for literary fiction where you can have lesbian characters, but there is no market for lesbian romances, popular lesbian romances. That's a part that makes me really sad, because I think it is very important for the stories to also be told here.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that things change soon, so that one is able to do that, share these stories here as well.
Sheryn, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
I'm available on Twitter. My handle is Sheryn Munir. I'm also on Instagram as SherynMunir.author. And I also have an email address, SherynMunir@outlook.com.
That is all for this episode. Thank you so much, Sheryn, for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me there.
So, I'm Tara, and you've been listening to Let's Do Books. Remember to email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with your questions or comments. If you're an author who's interested in joining me to talk about the lesfic you love or the trends that have you interested, please let me know. If you've enjoyed this episode, please check out the show notes where you'll find a Patreon link for the Lesbian Talk Show. Our patrons get exclusive content like bonus podcasts that no one else gets access to. You can also join our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about these books and anything else you're reading and loving. To find this and many other great shows, all you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher.